Mabuhay, Kamustika, welcome. How are you? This is Bob from Love Beyond the Sea. How anger is bad for your marriage. We're going to be talking about anger for a while, and I'll probably call this playlist Temper Your Emotions with Your Filipina Wife. It's something I've always wanted to talk about at Love Beyond the Sea. I try to have content that would be of special interest to a couple of groups of people. Excuse me here for a second. One is a lonely man who is about to give up on love, that wants to be married very badly, but is losing hope. To help them consider a Filipina, a woman from the Philippines. Another is for someone who is already in a relationship with a Filipina through dating, engagement, maybe marriage. I want to assist men, often who are foreigners, to have a successful and committed relationship to a Filipina, especially in marriage. Please subscribe to Love Beyond the Sea and get notifications for upcoming videos. I have a lot in the vault to make for you. In addition to about 700 plus videos already, clvbts.com, where you can also find podcasts there on Casting Beyond the Sea. Now, bear with me, don't get angry with me, but there is a lot to share with you, and it's going to take 4 videos in order to avoid having them be too long. This is a critical topic. It really is. Just thinking today, the Bible says, make no friendship with an angry man, and with a furious man thou shalt not go. Why? Lest thou learn his ways and get a snare to your soul. So an angry man is not ready to be a married man. Conflict can be a source of growth in a relationship, but only if it is handled properly, with the good of the relationship being the goal. And seriously, I cannot have a channel with practical shared relationship advice without talking about anger. And I think a lot of people don't want to talk about that. Well, I hope you will indulge me here in these videos. I've always wanted to do a series on that, and it starts today. Let's talk briefly about a temper test. I will link in the description box right on the top, along with some other links that will be drawn from during this series. Here's a sample of some of the questions and how to rank yourself. I'm sure there is a science to the type of questions, that it wasn't just tossed together without some reason. For example, questions like, you unpack an appliance you've just bought, plug it in, and discover it doesn't work. Or being overcharged by a repair person who has you over the barrel. Being singled out for a correction while the others, or the actions of others, go unnoticed. Getting your car stuck in the mud or sand, and you're talking to someone, they don't answer you. Someone pretends to be something they are not. All kinds of questions, and your responses will, well, you rank them like not at all, little, bothers me a little, moderate amount of anger, much anger, or very much anger. And so I took that score, and it gave me my total. How I fared? Well, not very good, actually. And I think this is probably a year or so ago. I got an 80%. 80%. So from the 25 questions, I averaged a 3+. And now that makes me angry. But it is what it is. And so again, they rated them from 0 to 5, from not at all to very much makes you angry. The score is then totaled to give you your stress score. So in another video, I will reveal how I scored, in particular, and how I can learn from it. In addition to that, I want to detail for you a time we both had to work through a difficult decision that resulted in anger on both of our parts. And I think talking about that will help this video by being real. This series, I will never throw my wife under the bus because I love her and respect her. But that will be a situation we can learn from, and that will be later. I'll be adding to some points made in those links. Let's start today with everyday annoyances. That can make people angry. Things like, did my wife buy the right kind of hamburger at the store? If I say 93% and she buys 85, am I going to be upset? Especially if it happens a lot. The right kind of burritos. I'm pretty picky. Now that we're married, I don't always go buy my own food. She goes out and gets things. Well, maybe she doesn't get it right every time. Maybe she wants to substitute something, and maybe I didn't tell her I didn't want something different. Those can cause anger, these everyday annoyances. Did she text me at break when I was expecting it? Did I ask her to? Did she ask me about my day? Did I tell her I wanted her to? By and large, this is not an area that causes much annoyance to me in our marriage. Filipinas have the reputation for being hardworking and responsible. If my wife had an accident and the car was totaled, I would only be concerned about her well-being, not the car. If she is fine, I don't know why I would think about it again, other than praying for her safety on the road. What would bother me much more would be if she still hasn't called her doctor for an appointment she needs. Why is that? Unfinished business is something that can get on my nerves. How about increased conflict? These are all listed there in those links you can see. If she wasn't scheduling this doctor appointment and we had an argument about something, she criticized me for spending too much time on YouTube, she bought something I didn't think we needed, she took someone else's side in something, then that increased conflict could lead to a boiling over of emotions. I want to add here that it's not a virtue to just ignore things that cause you some friction out of fear that causing conflict would be bad for the relationship. I think it needs to have that. They will add up eventually and could lead to an outburst. A healthy marriage can handle conflict. They must see it as they are in it for the long haul, so they won't bolt after the first sign of trouble and will be committed enough to learn from their conflicts. The article mentioned built up bitterness. Have we been married long enough to have built up bitterness? Probably 5 years, 9 months. We have been willing to give a little, sometimes a lot, in order to have harmony. The money issue between a foreigner and Filipina could certainly become a source of pent-up frustration if there isn't conversation about it. And I mean straightforward, but without threatening. Social media, work hours, amount of work, something that makes you jealous, the type of house you live in, where you live, how she looks, disagreement about many things could result in built-up bitterness and anger if it doesn't get talked about. Let's talk about the dilemma of angry outbursts and sin from one of the articles. Anger is often a secondary emotion. The primary emotions are hurt, fear, frustration. Anger can also be a sign that we care deeply about something or that something is wrong. For example, anger can indicate outrage at child abuse. And they say all anger is not the same. God gave us a heart and a brain, emotions and logic. Both are necessary and affect our decision-making and worldview. Emotions are the voice of our heart, they say. And as Christians, we so often stuff, deny, or invalidate an emotion such as anger because good Christians don't get angry. But without information from our heart, we often make mind-only decisions which are incomplete. How anger affects your health and marriage. The inappropriate expression of anger on the part of one spouse can hurt both spouses deeply and cause significant harm to the marriage in the following ways. Damage the safe feeling, trust that they have. Damaging self-esteem by resulting guilt and shame. Make one fearful of self-giving and of receiving love. Introduce increases a fear of being hurt. Result in a spouse being distant. Lead to sadness, loneliness, and anxiety. Wounds the sense of being special and a gift to one spouse. Now, I agree with all these ways that anger affects our health and marriage, but this one here I kept going back to is the one I hate the most. I love to touch my wife in non-sexual ways just to show her my deep affection for her. If I were to have anger issues, then it would damage my wife by making her think maybe she wasn't so special after all and feel like she's not really a gift to me. Just thinking of that puts a pit in my stomach. Words definitely hurt. And I have a video out on how to communicate with your Filipino wife you might be interested in. Also, how anger affects your marriage. It can increase sexual temptations because if you're angry, you're not going to be getting together, and that can really, cause an unraveling of the situation. So deal with your angry. The Bible says, "Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath." You'll get angry sometimes. Just deal with it together and deal with it quickly. Anger can also contribute to drinking, gambling, and other compulsive behaviors. Inappropriate expressions of anger in marriage can be a major source of marital distress and unhappiness. Recognizing and managing this unruly emotion can greatly enhance the degree of security and happiness that you and your spouse achieve in marriage. If you are willing to take an honest look at yourself, like I did in that survey we'll talk about, come to grips with the reality that anger is an issue in your marriage and you are willing to work at it, you can overcome this maritally destructive emotion and discover the joy of peace and harmony in your marriage and family. What man or woman gets married thinking to themselves, they say, one of these days I'm going to be so upset and angry towards my spouse that I'm going to burst out into frequent fits of anger that will emotionally damage my spouse in a very deep way. That's not the way that anger commonly destroys a marriage. It's usually something that gradually creeps in unawares until finally it takes its toll. There's not one of us who doesn't occasionally get angry and upset with our spouse. You can't live together under the same roof for too long without finding things you disagree about, things that really make you upset and angry with each other. So one more thing here before we close, touching on this, the problem with anger in marriage, it's not whether we get angry, but what we do with it that matters. This is from another link. It's how we handle the angry emotions we feel towards our spouse when it occurs. Are we going to allow our anger to spew out and hurt our spouse emotionally, or are we going to find ways to express ourselves appropriately, ways to express our anger in appropriate ways that enables our spouse to feel safe amidst the upsets that eventually and inevitably happen in every marriage from time to time? In order to do so, it helps if we understand that anger in and of itself is not wrong. Anger is a God-given emotion, a natural emotion common to each of us, a human emotion that happens naturally in response to each's perception of a threat to our security and well-being. Emotions are simply a part of the way God wired us, yet they are subject to our management and control. Everyone experiences anger, some more intensely and frequently than others. It's not whether we're going to get angry, but what we do with that anger that matters. Recognizing what makes us angry can help us find better ways to cope with that emotion. Now, researchers tell us that anger in marital relationships is more prevalent than in any other relationship, not surprisingly, and that inability to express one's anger appropriately is the principal cause of harmful interactions within marriage. The success or failure of a marriage may depend on the way spouses manage and express their angry feelings. So anger, very important thing to talk about. Next time, I will talk about what you can do about your anger in marriage as I continue this series, and hope you will listen in here on Love Beyond the Sea.